House will come to order. See if we got a few people missing, maybe even a committee, and then we have some folks gone to a funeral. I'd like to welcome everybody to the 15th day of the session, Friday, March 1st, 2024. The reading clerk will please call the roll.
Convening roll for the 15th day, March 1st, 2024. Alamand. Allred. Andrew.
Excused.
Angelos. Banks.
Excused.
Bear.
Excused.
Berger. Brown. Burkhart.
Excused.
Byron.
Excused.
Chadwick. Chestick. Clouston. Conrad.
Conrad, excused.
Grego.
Excused.
Davis. Eklund. Haroldson. Harshman.
Excused.
Heiner.
Excused.
Henderson. Hornock. Jennings.
Excused.
Knapp.
Excused.
Larson Lloyd. Larson JT.
Excused.
Lawley.
Excused.
Locke.
Excused. Present. Oh, there he is.
Nyman. Newsom. Nicholas. Nemec. Northrop.
Excused.
Oakley.
Excused.
Obermuller. O'Hearn. Olson. Ottman. Pendergraft.
Excused.
Penn. Provenza. Rodriguez Williams. Sherwood. Singh. Slagle. Smith. Stith. Storer.
Excused.
Strock.
Excused.
Stivar.
Present.
Tarver.
Excused.
Trujillo. Walters. Ward. Washit. Western.
Excused.
Winter. Wiley. Yin. Sawanitzer Dan. Sawanitzer Dave. Speaker Summers. Harshman. Here. Byron. Excused to hear.
Clerk, I think we'll just keep that roll open until after play ball. All right, the prayer of the day will be provided by our very own Representative Clouston. Please rise.
Friends, before the prayer, I have a little story I want to share with you. I've been waiting 20 years to tell this story. So, being Catholic, during Lent, on Fridays, we abstained from meat. And when my son was 6 years old, it was our third Friday in Lent, and he looks down at his fish, and he looks up at me, and with all the honesty of a child, he says, "Dad, too bad Jesus wasn't a rancher." So I guess we could say amen and call that the prayer. But, we've had some long days here and some difficult times. Sometimes it's hard to keep our attention. In 7th grade, I had a great mentor and teacher, Sister Teresa Hackenberg. And she taught us, if you're tired, if you're frustrated, if you lose hope and you lose focus, just stop and say a prayer of thanks. The other day, I had one of those moments in here, so I stopped, and here's a prayer, quick prayer I wrote for all of us. Gracious God, let us focus on our duty and appreciate the many gifts that you've given us. Thank you for the men and women who've served and sacrificed, both here and abroad, so we may enjoy these democratic freedoms. Thank you for our families and our friends. Please continue to bless and protect them, especially while we are away from our homes. Thank you for the communities in the state that we get to represent. We are so blessed to live in this part of your creation. Thank you for the honor of working with this legislative staff and in this legislative body. Please guide our words and our work today and throughout the remainder of our session. And Lord, thank you for the opportunity to serve others. We realize that as we serve others, we also serve you. Heavenly Father, we give you our thanks and we trust in your promises. Amen.
Thank you, Representative Clausen, both for the prayer and the story. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The House will please come to order. Okay. Yeah, let's find our seats. Thank you. Reading clerk, why don't we finish that roll call?
Andrew? Banks? Bear? Burkhart?
Excused.
Conrad?
Excused.
Crago?
Excused.
Heiner? Larson JT? Lawley? Northrop? Oakley? Pendergraft?
Excused.
Storer?
Excused.
Strock? Tarver? Western? Mr. Speaker, 55 present, 7 excused.
Oop, we have another one.
Oh,
Two more.
Conrad? Okay. Oakley? No. Knapp? I got her. She got her. She's still here. That's it. 57 present,
All right.
5 excused.
We're getting closer. I think I'll do our journal committee report once the reading clerk gets sat back down.
Your journal committee reports that the journal of February 29th, 2024 has been read and recommends that it be approved. Representatives Ward and Chestick.
So I think it looks like we're going to do the interns first. Is that good enough, Chief? All right, so Representative Wiley, Representative Western, and Representative Brown, please go to the mics and introduce your interns. All right, Representative Western, we'll just start with you. It looks, are we supposed to start in any certain order or? Nope, okay, Representative Western.
Real quick, I'd like my intern Jada Berry to come out into the floor real quick. Jada, come on out. So
Awesome.
members, real quick, I just want
Let's
to tell
give
you
her
a
a
little bit
little
about
hand.
her. This is Jada Berry. She's a senior at Sheridan High School. She got into Wake Forest University, but we're going to try to get her to go to Laramie. She's incredibly capable, she's talented, and I'm incredibly excited to where she's going to go in the future. So let's give her a big house.
Representative Wiley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I have Lily Duncan come out? Lily Duncan's a senior, Green River High School, who says wolves and tigers can't get along. She's done a great job for us. I hope she's had a good experience, and all the best luck to you, and thank you very much.
Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll have Vincent Pickard come out here, and you guys might recognize the last name. I will say that Mr. Pickard here is a senior at Cheyenne Central High School. He's on the swim team. I will not fight him because he would box me to death, of course, right? But Mr. Pickard is going to be attending Texas A&M University this coming fall, and he's going to be doing engineering, so gig him. And just want to say thank you for all the hard work that you've done for me this year, Vincent. Thank you.
I'd like to also thank Lavonda for all she does with our aides and interns. It's much appreciated. Thank you. I think that program is really an excellent one. It really allows students, young people to get involved in government and allows us to see enthusiasm, maybe when we're lacking some at times. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Grandpa Chairman Eklund.
Privileged Mr. Speaker.
Please.
So I've got a couple of the grandkids here. This is a whole new house from when they started. I think Chairman Harshman might be the only one here that has known them besides me that's known them since they were born. Yeah, well, that one was the third one and he's about grown too. Anyway, oh yes, we have one more. Dan Zwanitra. I was trying to go through the room and pick out who could have been here when their dad served here and they were babies. But anyway, they are not babies anymore. And my oldest grandchild is Addie Teeters, and my second oldest grandson is Ethan Teeters, and they are just a delight for Susie and I.
Representative Teeters was a really, really good young legislator that had an incredible mind and really understood legislation and bills. So thanks you guys for coming here and helping your granddad out. Let's see, who do we have next? Representative Penn, you look like you're at a mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Privilege.
Please.
Body, it is my pleasure to introduce in the West Gallery my family. So we have up here my pride and joy and the reason that I am doing what I'm doing. So we've got Grady, who is 4, and Laramie, who is 6, and Dally, who's 8. And we've got Grandpa and Grandma Penn, Ruth and Dana, who have been helping run kids around and treat fevers and do all those things. And last but not least, my husband Nate, who has been trying to keep it all together and being Mr. Mom and doing a lot of difficult things. So join me in welcoming them.
Here, here.
Thank you, Penn family, and it's really important. I guess it's a good time to say thank you to all of the families out there that are families of members of the legislature that kind of keep the wheels on while we're down here, so much appreciated. So next, we're going to do our page recognition, which is Kinsley Merritt. So come on out. So we're going to give her a hand, and then she's going to give a speech. So give her a big hand.
Hi, my name is Kinsley Merritt, and I'm a senior at Cody High School. I was asked to talk about what I've learned throughout the week and throughout my internship over on the Senate side for the last 2 weeks and what I've learned here in the House. First, I'll tell you a little bit about my future plans and a couple thank yous. So I plan to attend the University of Wyoming and their honors program, and I would really like to study abroad in Europe specifically. And after I study abroad, I plan to take what I learned there and bring it back here to Wyoming to study pharmacy or anesthesiology. That part's a little undecided as of now. I want to shout out to my mother, father for letting me come here and my whole family for supporting me. I want to thank my school for allowing me to go. They're really big on internships, and it shows because a lot of our schools, or a lot of the kids from our school like to succeed in those internships. I'd like to thank Katie for letting me page for the week. And lastly, Senator Dockstader and Representative Allred for allowing me to work in research projects with them and allowing me to get more experience and showing me that you not only have to work amongst your legislators, but those people and citizens that you also affect during your legislature and with the bills you write. So a couple of things I've learned is that a lot of communication goes on, and you guys like to talk a lot. Sitting behind the bar with Patty back there, you guys like to talk in the hallways, on the floor, behind the bar. You guys have a lot of break room parties. I think we had to shut the door yesterday because you guys got a little loud. And then a lot of you also like to have phone calls on speakerphone. So I promise good things are coming. Just give me. You guys also like to play a lot of pranks and have fun. Representative Berger, I'm so sorry for your mailbox. Tuesday, Representative JT Larson, I'm so sorry for sending all that stuff to your desk. It was not my doing, I promise. Wednesday, Representative Singh, I think I ran a couple notes to you at your desk for being the chairman. I've noticed cameras are everywhere, so you need to act accordingly. Meaning, don't, yeah. And all of the different ways to, I wrote in cursive, that was a bad idea. And all of the different ways to refer to a different member of the House. I've heard some very interesting ones, but it's all in good things because when you talk, you are mostly talking about important things, which is important because you are here to do important business. And I've really admired that. And when you do pranks, you build friendships and you build relationships with the members of the House, which then strengthen the House and make Wyoming a better place overall. All the cameras, yeah, they keep you in check. So I've noticed how a lot of the time, Patty will tell me you're on camera and I'll notice, and as I'm on camera, I notice that I listen more. So over the week, I've really tried to listen more to what you guys have said because I understand that it is important. And all in all, the House is a great place to be. You guys lay a sturdy foundation for the legislature of Wyoming, and you hold each other accountable with point of orders. And Representative Zwanitser's incredible knowledge of the rules and the motions is really helpful, and it's proven to me how much reading and knowing that knowledge is important when you work in a legislature. You guys have shown me that you've kept your promise to represent the counties and the people that have elected you, and I find that really encouraging because you guys in the legislature have made what I call home a paradise in the countryside. Thank you.
Awesome. Oh, Kinsley back. Down the aisle. There you go. Kinsley, that was really, really good talk, and we appreciate you being here, and we wish you the best going forward in the future. The one other thing I want to do is the doctor of today is James Eggert from the Family Medicine Practice in Cheyenne, Wyoming. So, Dr. Eggert, please welcome him. And just one other note, Representative Tarver was fortunate enough to trap the stray cat that had been running around in the body here, and we got that cat taken care of and moved along the line. Let's just put it that way. So anyway, if you haven't heard the cat, you weren't listening, but. All right, next I think we're gonna do, I got a note here. Today is the deadline for interim topic submissions. Please submit your proposed topics using the form on the website no later than 4 p.m. today. Okay. So we are at that order of business of signing of enrolled acts, well, at least one. And so the first enrolled act for our consideration is House Enrolled Act number 23, being original House Bill 66. The reading clerk will read the enrolled act.
House Enrolled Act 23 being original House Bill 66. An act relating to labor and employment, authorizing firefighters to receive annual cancer screenings under the Wyoming Workers' Compensation Act, making conforming amendments, providing definitions, requiring rulemaking, and providing for effective dates, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign in House Enrolled Act number 23, being original House Bill 66. I have so signed. Congratulations, Representative Brown. Okay, now we're gonna, no messages from the Senate. Do we have reports from standing committees? Okay, let's do that.
Senate File 8, sponsored by Labor. Health insurance for volunteer emergency responders, an act relating to compensation and benefits. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred Senate File 8, Health Insurance for Volunteer Emergency Responders, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Chadwick, Clouston, Hornock, O'Hearn, Penn, Trujillo, Ward, Yin, Zwanitzer. Representative Zwanitzer, Chairman. Senate File 36, sponsored by Judiciary. Uniform Child Abduction Prevention Act, an act relating to domestic relations. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 1, Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 36, Uniform Child Abduction Prevention Act, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Chestick, Nemec, Oakley, Provenza, Rodriguez-Williams, Washit. Noes, Representatives Haroldson, Jennings. Excused, Representative Crago. Representative Washit, Chairman. Senate File 53, sponsored by Senator Landon, 6th Judicial District, number of judges, an act relating to the judiciary. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 1, Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 53, 6th Judicial District, number of judges, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Chestick, Haroldson, Jennings, Nemec, Oakley, Provenza, Rodriguez-Williams, Washit. Excused, Representative Crago. Representative Washit, Chairman. Senate File 57, sponsored by Senator Furphy. Wyoming Adult Hearing Aid Program, an act relating to public health and safety. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred Senate File 57 engrossed, Wyoming Adult Hearing Aid Program, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Chadwick, Clouston, O'Hearn, Yin, Zwanitzer. Noes, Representatives Hornock, Penn, Trujillo, Ward. Representative Zwanitzer, Chairman. Senate File 73, sponsored by Senator Barlow. Concealed Firearms Permit Eligibility, an act relating to weapons. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 1, Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 73, Concealed Firearms Permit Eligibility, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Haroldson, Jennings, Nemec, Oakley, Provenza, Rodriguez-Williams, Washit. Noes, Representative Chestick. Excused, Representative Crago. Representative Washit, Chairman. Senate File 90, sponsored by Senator Guru. State Managed Local Government Equity Investment Pool, an act relating to public funds. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 2, Appropriations, to whom is referred Senate File 90 engrossed, State Managed Local Government Equity Investment Pool, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Henderson, Larson, Nicholas, Sherwood, Stith, Walters, Zwanitzer. Representative Nicholas, Chairman. Senate File 109, sponsored by Senator Beitman. Prohibit Red Flag Gun Seizure Act, an act relating to the protection of constitutional rights. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, to whom is referred Senate File 109 engrossed, Prohibit Red Flag Gun Seizure Act, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Angelos, Burkhart, Byron, Larson, Newsom, Singh, Western, Winter. Noes, Representative Storer. Representative Newsom, Chairman. Senate File 118, sponsored by Senator Hicks. Bighorn and Domestic Sheep Relocation Federal Action, an act relating to wildlife and livestock. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, to whom is referred Senate File 118 engrossed, Bighorn and Domestic Sheep Relocation Federal Action, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Angelos, Burkhart, Byron, Larson, Newsom, Singh, Storer, Western, Winter. Representative Newsom, Chairman. Senate File 123, sponsored by Senator Kinski. Minor name changes, an act relating to the Code of Civil Procedure. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 1 Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 123, minor name changes, respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Chestick, Haroldson, Jennings, Nemec, Oakley, Provenza, Rodriguez-Williams, Washit. Excused, Representative Crago. Representative Washit, Chairman.
All right, we're at that order of business of Senate files on first reading, the first and only Senate file for our what? Okay, yeah, I'll do those first. All right, re-referrals, Chairman Zwanitzer. That would be Senate File 57.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to re-refer Senate File 57 to your Committee Number 2 Appropriations.
Without objection, Senate File 57 is re-referred to Committee Number 2 Appropriations. Chairman Washit.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move, ask for a re-referral, Senate File 53 to Committee Number 2.
Without objection, Senate File 53 has been re-referred to Committee Number 2 Appropriations. Chairman Harshman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The chief will receive at the desk here shortly Senate File 54. Also, I'd request that it be re-referred to Committee Number 2 Appropriations. Thank you.
If I haven't read the bill in, I can't re-refer it. So I don't even know the last one. Did we re-refer in Chairman Washit's? Or is it in play? Is Chairman Harshman's bill in play? Okay, so I'll have to wait on that one. And Chairman Eklund, I believe you have one. Do we have Chairman Eklund anywhere? Oh, there he is. Chairman Eklund, it's Senate File 13.
Mr. Speaker, I move to re-refer Senate File 13 from Agriculture, or from the general file to, it mistakenly got put there, and we'll put it with appropriations, if that's okay. They need to look at it. It has a small appropriation they might want to look at and rubber stamp and send back to us.
Thank you, Chairman Eklund. He had a minor appropriation. Without objection, Senate File 13 is re-referred to Committee Number 2 Appropriations. Okay, now we're at that order of business of Senate files on first reading. The first and only Senate file for our consideration is Senate File 132. Reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 132, sponsored by Senator Kolb.
First reading of the bill.
American Rescue Plan Act Appropriations Amendments 4.
Senate File 132 is referred to Committee Number 2 Appropriations. We're at that order of business of bills on second reading. The first Senate file for our consideration is Senate File 7. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 7, sponsored by Labor, Behavioral Health, Redesign Vulnerable Adults.
Senate File 7, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. The next Senate file for our consideration is Senate File 14.
Senate File 14, sponsored by Agriculture, State Fair Board Powers and Responsibilities.
We have amendments. Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to move second reading amendment to Senate File 14.
This is on the, this is on the State Fair Board. Yesterday, we had some confusion there, but I would like to like you to look at page 3, line 4, delete that, page 3, line 5, and delete that, or delete that. And then what we will do there is insert Wyoming Statute 923204. And the reason for this is to clear up what the Department of Ag is talking about here. They're moving the State Fair Board from a Category 2 to a Category 1, which this will, with the development of the State Fair Board, that's what this is supposed to do. So I would like an aye vote on this, and this will just take some of the confusion out of the bill. And stand for any questions. Thank you.
All right, Representative Sherwood for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'm Googling quickly and trying to figure this out. Can the bringer of this amendment explain what Wyoming Statute 9-2-3204 does that's different from the AG's current contracting and procurement laws? Thank you.
Anybody else for their first time? Representative Zwanitz or Dave?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe that statute says that they got to follow the rules and regulations as put out by agency number 6. So agency number 10 is the one that handles the financing and the budgeting, but they need to follow the rules.
Anybody else for their first time? Anybody for their second time before the sponsor? Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the good representative there in the back is correct. That is the Wyoming statute that does handle the procurement laws and everything like that. So with that, I would hope for an aye vote. Thank you.
All those in favor of second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 14 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed. Second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 14 has been adopted. Senate File 14 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. The next Senate file for our consideration is Senate File 22.
Senate File 22, sponsored by Corporations, Public Service Commission, Electricity Reliability.
Senate File 22 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. The next Senate file for our consideration is Senate File 32.
Senate File 32, sponsored by Judiciary, Hemp, Limitations on Psychoactive Substances.
Senate File 32 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. The next Senate file for our consideration is Senate File 34.
Senate File 34, sponsored by Judiciary, Sex Offender Registration, Registrable Offenses.
Senate File 34 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. The next Senate file for our consideration is Senate File 44.
Senate File 44, sponsored by Minerals, Limited Mining Operations Amendments.
Just a second. All right, Senate File 44 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall a bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. The next Senate file for our consideration is Senate File 50.
Senate File 50, sponsored by Blockchain, Unincorporated Nonprofit DAOs.
Senate File 50 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. The next Senate file for our consideration is Senate File 61.
Senate File 61, sponsored by Senator Driscoll. Education, Charter School Amendments.
Senate File 61 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. The next Senate file for our consideration is Senate File 66.
Senate File 66, sponsored by Water Exchange Amendments.
Representative Hornock, you have second reading amendment number 1.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 66 and ask for your favorable consideration. Members, what this amendment basically does, if you look on the bill page, the bottom page 2, top page 3, there's a section in there that deals with notification where if there is a change in the exchange of water and appropriators of water are involved in this, then that exchange not only requires notification in the paper, which is what's in the bill, but also they need to notify anybody that is involved with that exchange, that might be involved with that exchange by mail. So just making sure that when it comes to water rights, the people that are involved, that have stock, that have buy-in with the water usage, especially downstream from where the exchange takes place, that they will be notified or make sure that they're notified in some way. I did it by mail, not certified mail, so we're just dealing with the price of a stamp here. And as you all know, if things are just advertised in legal advertisements in the paper, they don't always reach the full audience. So I ask for your favorable consideration. I'd stand for any questions.
Representative Conrad for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, to the good bringer of the amendment. This is duplicative in nature. We already do this. City engineer does ensure that there is communication specifically, and this is just added language that's arduous and more importantly burdensome. That's is really not necessary nor needed.
Anybody else for their first time? Representative Davis?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the good representative over there pointed out, that language is already pretty clear there, but my question to the bringer of the amendment, what are the parameters? How far down are we talking, all the way to Lake Powell, or, the downstream providers of this water, How far down do we post this notice?
Chairman Eklund.
Mr. Speaker, I could answer that one. The State Engineers Authority would end at the Colorado border, I think, which is down by Carpenter, not far from Carpenter. The question I've got is maybe a response from the state engineer as to what he thought of this amendment. They are a really busy office. They're a big office and a busy one, and adding layers and layers of stuff to what they do just seems to increase the workload and the need for more employees. And I really would like to avoid that if we can. And I do believe that there's some notice, as mentioned by a previous speaker, that's already has to be required in the bill. So a response from what the state engineer might have said about that would be helpful to us.
Anybody else for their first time? Anybody for their second time before the sponsor? Representative Hornock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A couple of good questions. First of all, in the amendment, I did make sure to specify that it was just notification to people within the state of Wyoming. So it does end at the border of Wyoming. And then as far as the state engineer, I did talk to the state engineer about this, and he had some reservations because of sometimes this affects a couple of people, sometimes this affects maybe a whole basin. The compromise I made within this amendment was that it just requires a piece of mail going out, not a certified letter, not anything like that. They just need to notify people by mail. And I think this is important. when it comes to water usage and water rights, it's a very, very precious commodity, as you well know. I was notified about this bill just last night by somebody that I know, and they raised some concerns about it, so I'm just trying to alleviate some of those concerns because it was kind of sprung on them. And so I want to make sure that this isn't, things aren't sprung on these people that use the water, that require usage of this water. When it comes to usage of the water downstream from where an exchange takes place, I mean, you're talking a lot of money and a lot of work, and people's livelihood are based on this water. So I just think it's fairly reasonable to set up a pretty high standard for notification, whether that's a little more than just being notified in the paper. Thank you. I ask for an aye vote.
All those in favor, we're done. All those in favor with second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 66 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 66 has failed. Senate File 66 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. The next Senate file for our consideration is Senate File 70.
Senate File 70, sponsored by Capital Financing, Investment Modernization, State Non-Permanent Funds 2.
Senate File 70 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. The next Senate file for our consideration is Senate File 79.
Senate File 79, sponsored by Senator Barlow.
Senate File 79 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. The next Senate file for our consideration is Senate File 115.
Senate File 115, sponsored by Senator Baldwin, Behavioral Health Redesign Amendments 2.
Senate File 115 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. We are now at that order of business of bills on third reading, the consent list. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move the consent list consisting of the following bills: Senate File 12, Senate File 18, Senate File 37, Senate File 38, 45, 47, 48, 49, 55, 58, 59, 67, and 81 for the body's consideration.
Would anybody like to take any of the bills off the consent list? The reading clerk will read the bills on the consent list.
Senate File 12, sponsored by Agriculture, Meat Processing Plants, Hides and Carcasses, an act relating to hides and carcasses being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 18, sponsored by Tribal Relations, Indian Child Welfare Act, Safe Haven Amendments, an act relating to children being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 37, sponsored by Tribal, Indian Child Welfare Act, Delinquency Amendments, an act relating to domestic relations being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 38, sponsored by Management Audit, Financial Reporting Amendments 2, an act relating to financial reporting to the Department of Audit being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 45, sponsored by Senator Nethercott, Vulnerable Adults, Civil Cause of Action 2, an act relating to adult protective services being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 47, sponsored by Appropriations, Law Enforcement Retirement Contributions, an act relating to compensation and benefits being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 48, sponsored by Appropriations, Patrol Warden and Investigator Retirement Contributions, an act relating to compensation and benefits being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 49, sponsored by Appropriations, Judicial Retirement Program Contributions, an act relating to compensation and benefits being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 55, sponsored by Revenue, Board of Equalization, questions before the board, an act relating to State Board of Equalization being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 58, sponsored by Appropriations, Investment of State Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund, an act relating to unemployment compensation funds being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 59, sponsored by Appropriations, Federal Unemployment Compensation Trust Fund Adjustment, an act relating to unemployment compensation being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 67, sponsored by Appropriations, Public Employee Retirement Plan Contributions, an act relating to public employee retirement being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 81, sponsored by Senator Baldwin, Hospital or Healthcare District Created Entities Immunity, an act relating to civil procedure being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
Having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall these bills pass the House? The chief clerk will please call the roll.
Allemand, Allred, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Berger, Brown, Burkhart, Byron, Chadwick, Chestick, Clouston, Conrad, Crago excused, Davis, Eklund, Haroldson, Harshman, Heiner, Henderson, Hornock, Jennings excused, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Locke, Nyman, Newsom, Nicholas, Nemec, Northrop, Oakley, Obermuller, O'Hearn, Olson, Ottman, Pendergraft excused, Penn, Provenza, Rodriguez-Williams, Sherwood, Singh, Slagle, Smith, Stiff, Storer, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Trujillo, Walters, Ward, Washut, Western, Winter, Wiley, Yin, Zwanitzer Dan, Zwanitzer Dave, Speaker Summers. Are there any changes? Berger, excused to aye. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 58 aye, 4 excused. As for Senate File 12, are there any changes? Provenza, aye to no. Further changes? Further changes. Closing vote. Vote closed. 57 aye, 1 no, 4 excused. As for Senate File 18, are there any changes? Hornock, aye to no. Further changes? Rodriguez-Williams, aye to no. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 56 aye, 2 no, 4 excused. As for Senate File 37, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 58 aye, 4 excused. As for Senate File 38, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 58 aye, 4 excused. As for Senate File 45, are there any changes? Are there? Locke, aye to no. Smith, aye to no. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 56 aye, 2 no, 4 excused. As for Senate File 47, are there any changes? Locke, aye to no. Allemand, aye to no. Ottman, aye to no. Penn, aye to no. Smith, aye to no. Slagle, aye to no. Stivar, aye to no. Haroldson, aye to no. Ward, aye to no. Bear, aye to no. Strock, aye to no. Winter, aye to no. Knapp, aye to no. Heiner, aye to no. Further changes? Nyman, aye to no. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 43 aye, 15 no, 4 excused. As for Senate File 48, are there any changes? Nyman, aye to no. Locke, aye to no. Ottman, aye to no. Penn, aye to no. Smith, aye to no. Slagle, aye to no. Stivar, aye to no. Ward, aye to no. Haroldson, aye to no. Bear, aye to no. Strock, aye to no. Knapp, aye to no. Heiner, aye to no. Allemand, aye to no. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 44 aye, 14 no, 4 excused. As for Senate File 49, are there any changes? Nyman, aye to no. Locke, aye to no. Allemand, aye to no. Hornock, aye to no. Ottman, aye to no. Penn, aye to no. Smith, aye to no. Slagle, aye to no. Stivar, aye to no. Haroldson, aye to no. Ward, aye to no. Bear, aye to no. Strock, aye to no. Knapp, aye to no. Winter, aye to no. Heiner, aye to no. Further changes? Further changes. Closing vote. Vote closed. 42 aye, 16 no, 4 excused. As for Senate File 55, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Nyman, aye to no. Stiff, aye to no. Walters, aye to no. Oakley, aye to no. Brown, aye to no. Larson Lloyd, aye to no. Olson, aye to no. Allemand, aye to no. Banks, aye to no. Tarver, aye to no. Knapp, aye to no. Davis, aye to no. Hornock, aye to no. Singh, aye to no. Penn, aye to no. Andrew, aye to no. Smith, aye to no. Slagle, aye to no. Stivar, aye to no. Strock, aye to no. Haroldson, aye to no. Ward, aye to no. Bear, aye to no. Winter, aye to no. Rodriguez Williams, aye to no. Angelos, aye to no. Heiner, aye to no. Further changes? Locke, aye to no. Further changes? Further changes. Closing vote. Vote closed. 30 aye, 28 no, 4 excused. As for Senate File 58, are there any changes? Hornock, aye to no. Penn, aye to no. Ottman, aye to no. Slagle, aye to no. Smith, aye to no. Allemand, aye to no. Further changes? Further changes. Closing vote. Vote closed. 52 aye, 6 no, 4 excused. As for Senate File 59, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Hornock, aye to no. Further changes. Closing. Locke, aye to no. Further changes? Closing vote. Winter, aye to no. Further changes. Closing vote. Vote closed. 55 aye, 3 no, 4 excused. As for Senate File 67, are there any changes? Nyman, aye to no. Locke, aye to no. Ottman, aye to no. Penn, aye. Penn, aye to no. Hornock, aye to no. Andrew, aye to no. Allemand, aye to no. Smith, aye to no. Slagle, aye to no. Stivar, aye to no. Haroldson, aye to no. Ward, aye to no. Bear, aye to no. Strzok, aye to no. Knapp, aye to no. Winter, aye to no. Heiner, aye to no. Rodriguez Williams, aye to no. Angelos, aye to no. Further changes? Further changes. Closing vote. Vote closed. 39 aye, 19 no, 4 excused. As for Senate File 81, are there any changes? Hornock, aye to no. Singh, aye to no. Andrew, aye to no. Penn, aye to no. Ottman, aye to no. Smith, aye to no. Slagle, aye to no. Stivar, aye to no. Bear, aye to no. Ward, aye to no. Haroldson, aye to no. Strzok, aye to no. Angelos, aye to no. Rodriguez Williams, aye to no. Winter, aye to no. Knapp, aye to no. Heiner, aye to no. Allemand, aye to no. Tarver, aye to no. Locke, aye to no. Nyman, aye to no. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 37 aye, 21 no, 4 excused.
Having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, Senate Files 12, 18, 37, 38, 45, 47, 48, 49, 58, 59, 67, and 81 have passed the House. having not received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, Senate File 55 has failed to pass the House. We're at that order of business of bills on third reading and final passage. The first and only bill on the regular list is Senate File 60.
Senate File 60, sponsored by Select Federal Natural Resource Management, 2024 Large Project Funding, an act relating to the Wyoming Wildlife and Natural Resource Funding Act, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
We have an amendment, third reading amendment number 1, Representative Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I respectfully withdraw that amendment.
Yay. Third reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 60 has been withdrawn. Senate File 60, having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall the bill pass? Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Allemand? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Clauston? Conrad? Crago excused. Davis? Eklund? Harrelson? Harshman? Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings excused. Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup? Oakley? Obermuller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft excused. Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stith? Storer? Strzok? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washut? Western excused. Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwanzer Dan? Zwanzer Dave? Speaker Summers? Are there any changes? Smith? Aye to no. Locke? No to aye. Further changes? Further changes. Closing vote. Vote closed. 49 aye, 9 no, 4 excused.
Senate File 60, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, Senate File 60 has passed the House. We are now at that order of business of signing enrolled acts. Right. The first enrolled act for our consideration is House Enrolled Act number 24, being original House Bill 32.
House Enrolled Act 24, being original House Bill 32. An act relating to environmental quality, specifying that the pore space utilization is a purpose of geological sequestration unitization, providing definitions, amending permit types related to geological sequestration, amending application requirements for the unitization of interests in pore space in a unit area, amending the findings required by the Oil and Gas Conservation Commission before entry of a utilization order, amending notice requirements for utilization applications, clarifying that the unitization order may provide for the use of directional wells, making conforming amendments, specifying applicability, requiring rulemaking, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign House Enrolled Act number 24, being original House Bill 32. I have so signed. The next enrolled act for our consideration is House Enrolled Act number 25, being original House Bill 54.
House Enrolled Act 25 being original House Bill 54, an act relating to legal time and holidays, designated Wyoming Reads Day as a state-recognized commemorative day to be observed as specified, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign House Enrolled Act number 25, being original House Bill 54. I have so signed. The next enrolled act for our consideration is House Enrolled Act number 26, being original House Bill 81.
House Enrolled Act 26 being original House Bill 81, an act relating to administration of government, removing minimum fiscal training requirements for public officers, limiting the duration of training for public officers, authorizing public officers to complete training on personal time, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign House Enrolled Act number 26, being original House Bill 81. I have so signed. Congratulations, Representative Banks. And a bit belated, but congratulations, Chairman Washut, on House Bill 54. Give him a round of applause. The next enrolled act for our consideration is Senate Enrolled Act number 7, being original Senate File 5.
Senate Enrolled Act 7 being original Senate File 5, an act relating to insurance, prohibiting discrimination against organ transplant recipients by insurers as specified, providing definitions, specifying applicability, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 7, being original Senate File number 5. I have so signed. The next enrolled act for our consideration is Senate Enrolled Act number 8, being original Senate File 9.
Senate Enrolled Act 8 being original Senate File 9, an act relating to education, specifying procedures and requirements for school districts to provide parents and guardians notice of information regarding students and the rights of parents and guardians to make decisions regarding their children, specifying that school districts cannot prohibit parental or guardian notifications and involvement in critical decisions involving students, specifying procedures for resolving parents or guardian concerns and complaints, specifying duties for the school districts, requiring adoption of necessary policies, rules, and procedures, and providing for an effective dates, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 8, being original Senate File 9. I have so signed. Mr. Majority Floor Leader. Oh, you got to, okay, Representative Larson, JT,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Privilege of the floor.
please.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, today we are visited by a group called Capital Collaborations, which brings together various individuals and members from statewide organizations, including HOPE, Hispanic Organization for Progress in Education, the Chair Project of the Equality State Policy Center, Wyoming Independent Citizens Coalition, CHISPA, and Wyoming Civic Engagement Network. These groups and individuals are empowered to collaborate on community issues such as education and health access, growing civic engagement, empowering voters, and building cultural inclusion. For some of the attendees today, this is their first ever visit to the Capitol to see the legislature in action. And these groups hope that this can forge better relationships between them and their elected officials. They thank you for your work, and on behalf of the state, thank you.
Here, here.
Welcome to the House. For those of you that's never been here, I'm sorry you came when we were signing enrolled acts. All right, Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move the House resolve itself into committee of the whole.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Chairman Provenza.
Committee of the whole, please come to order. Order. First bill for our consideration is House Bill 74. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 74, sponsored by Senator Cooper. Special districts, reversal of dissolution for noncompliance, an act relating to special districts. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom is referred Senate File 74. Special districts, reversal of dissolution of noncompliance. Respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Berger, Brown, Nemec, Obermueller, O'Hearn, Pendergraft, Smith, Stivar, Wiley. Representative Brown, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Brown?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that Senate File 74 do pass, and I turn the explanation over to the good representative from the land of hot springs in the northern part of the state.
Representative Winter.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I bring to you Senate File 74, and the title of it is Special Districts Reversal of Dissolution for Noncompliance. This bill provides a process by which special districts required to dissolve for audit report noncompliance may reinstate the special district or cease the dissolution, specifying requirements for reinstatement, making conforming amendments, and providing for an effective date. I just need to give you a little history on this. This bill goes back to the special fire district in Hot Springs County. We need that district, and so we decided we better come up with something to resolve it. So here we are with this bill. The reason it happened was the special district did not conform to the auditor by the designated date, and that was December 31st. They did get it in by January 3rd, but in the meantime, they said we had to dissolve it. So we come up with this bill, and Senator Cooper and I have been working on it. So to explain it.
Watch the names, Representative Winter.
Apologize. The senator from Bighorn Basin. Anyway, the Board of County Commissioners may, by resolution, reinstate a district or cease dissolution procedures required under subsection B of this section in accordance with the following. The district shall become compliant with the requirements of Wyoming Statute 91507 by not later than April 1st of the year following the calendar year in which the district fails to comply with the annual reporting requirement under Wyoming Statute 9-1-507. Before district is reinstated or before dissolution procedures are ceased under this subsection, the district shall provide a corrective action plan to the Board of County Commissioners, which shall approve the plan submitted by the district before proceeding under this subsection. No reinstatement of a district or cessation of dissolution procedure shall occur unless the Department of Audit certifies to the Board of County Commissioners in writing that the district has become compliant with the reporting requirements of Wyoming Statute 91-507. So I ask for your favorable vote on this. Thank you.
Representative Zwanitzer.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Some days I just feel like I need to speak a little bit. Because this is probably the 8th time in my tenure, and it happens, and this is a good bill and perfectly fine, and you should vote yes on it. But we keep having this kind of reoccurring, we make a law, we give it teeth, we say, you need to do these things, or else, in this case, this is maybe the 3rd special district one we've dealt with, where we said, these are the rules, you need to abide by them, or consequences happen, and then they don't abide by them, and we come back a year or two later and we lessen the teeth we put in the law. This perhaps isn't lessening the teeth, it allows for another approach, and it's probably appropriate. But for those of you who stay here for a couple of terms or longer, just be aware that it's really difficult when you go through a process and you do a lot of research and a lot of interim work and you say, okay, we're on the same page, we all agree, these are the standards we're all going to abide by, and there are consequences if you don't. I felt like it needed to be said in this case, and I'm sure this fire district is perfectly trying to do the right thing and catch up, but be aware in the future.
Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So to follow up on that, ladies and gentlemen, again, this is something that your Management Audit Committee has been dealing with for going on 4 years now. And we had 2 bills that passed through this particular body from Management Audit. We also did one by a representative that lives in the northern part of the state that changed what we did last year because of the onerous reporting requirements, right? And so to further on the discussion here is, if we're gonna have special districts, and we're gonna have people be placed onto those boards in fiduciary responsibilities, and they are in charge of your tax money, they should abide by the law. That's what we've tried to accomplish with this. Well, so we came back and we said, you need to all take training, and you all need to be trained on how to be a fiduciary for your tax dollars. Well, we just got told that, yeah, that was too much training, so we're not gonna do that. So we also said, if you don't do the training, and if you fail to give and deliver the information that we need by the Department of Audit, or for the department that handles audits, we're gonna start withholding money from you.
I did.
We're gonna start pulling that back from you because you clearly can't seem to get this right. And there are something like 16 districts right now in this state that are going through this process of dissolution, which means there are 16 special districts in our state right now that are not following the laws that we have set forth with tax money. And so this bill, I think this is a good bill, because what this does is this places the onus back into the elected officials, where a lot of this tends to come from. And in the fire district case that was brought up during testimony in committee on this, we had a fire district. Well, I don't think anybody wants to see this fire district disappear, right? I think we all recognize we want to have that. Yes, they were 3 days late, but they were still 3 days late. And so this bill provides a mechanism to make sure that if they go down that level of dissolution, the people that are elected, the county commissioners, are going to be on the hook for that now. So the people that you actually represent, they're gonna have that representation at the same level for these county boards or these special district boards. So I do like this bill. I think this bill has some merit to it. But again, as the good chairman prior to me spoke about having teeth in a bill, we tried that approach and we heard loud and clear, well, you can't have too many teeth. So maybe pull a few of those teeth and make it a little easier on us, and they still can't seem to do it. So again, I would urge caution on the idea here, but I like this approach, and I appreciate the 2 bringers of this bill, the one across the hall and the one here in this, because this does take it back to the county commissioners. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Sensing no more discussion about teeth, call the question on the bill. All those in favor of Chairman Eklund's motion or Brown's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that House Bill 74 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Say no. House Bill 74 has passed committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 103. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 103, sponsored by Senator Salazar, Wyoming Prime Act, an act relating to marketing homemade goods. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom is referred Senate File 103, Wyoming Prime Act, respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Element, Allred, Banks, Conrad, Crago, Davis, Eklund, Slagle, Winter. Representative Eklund, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Eklund?
Madam Chairman, I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with recommendation that Senate File 103 do pass, and I'll turn the explanation over to one of the bill sponsors from the center of the state.
Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move Senate File 103 and ask for your favorable consideration. This bill, ladies and gentlemen, is referred to as the Wyoming Prime Act. It has no amendments, no fiscal impact, and it is a trigger to a federal House Bill 2814. And our only congressional representative and our junior senator are both in support of this bill. So I'll just go through and explain it a little bit. It is primarily what it's going to do is it is for local food. It'll keep local dollars in the community and for food freedom. Let me see, on page 2 of the bill, page 3, line 6, a producer may sell meat products from cattle, sheep, swine, or goats raised by the producer that were slaughtered on the premises of the producer or at a custom slaughter facility if the following conditions are met. The meat products are produced from animals that are raised, slaughtered, processed, and in Wyoming. The meat products are sold directly to an informed end consumer in Wyoming, whether for consumption on or off the premises. A prominent written warning statement shall be delivered to the informed end consumer at the time of sale, or the warning may be displayed on a label affixed to the meat product packaging. The warning required by this paragraph shall state, the meat product has not an informed end consumer who obtains meat products pursuant to this act agrees not to sell, donate, or commercially redistribute the meat. This is, again, a trigger bill, so nothing happens with it until the federal bill passes. House Resolution 2814. And once again, I would say this is really important for our local ranchers and farmers, our local communities in times when it's really hard to get beef. So I ask for your aye vote.
Chairman Newsom.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. When I read this bill, my stomach turned. As a former meat inspector, I can tell you that very quickly with meat, things can go wrong. Bacteria grows very quickly. If it's not properly handled, it grows very quickly. There's a reason we have an inspection process, and that is to protect the consumer. And you can say informed consumer all you want, but that doesn't stop bad things from happening. The challenge that I have with it is that there's no way to track if something does go wrong. We've all heard the news reports a while back about E. coli and those sorts of terrible diseases that come from tainted meat. There's no way to track who produced it, how it was processed, and so I have a real problem with this particular bill. I can't even think about people that aren't inspected, that processing facilities that aren't inspected, putting out meat products for consumers. I'm a hard no on this one. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker.
Madam Chairman, thank you. On in support of the bill. You know, one thing, it doesn't happen unless Congress passes a law. And I think of, I don't know, generations of my family that have eaten beef that's never been inspected, and none of them's died yet from it. So on and for the bill.
Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairwoman. On and for this bill, this is just, if this bill does at the federal level get enacted, this trigger bill would kick in. But this gives us, as consumers, an option. I mean, there's labeling and everything else that is in this bill that would have to identify the product to the consumer. So once again, as a consumer, you're looking for a better option. Many times it's a lower cost, so this could actually fill in there.
Representative Ottman, are you up? Chairman Newsom.
So let's be clear about how meat is processed in Wyoming at this point. There are fully inspected facilities that have inspectors on site when animals are slaughtered and processed. And generally, until really recently, those were inspected by the state of Wyoming, and that still occurs. And so the state of Wyoming inspects those, inspects the animals, and inspects the process, and inspects to make sure that proper procedures are being followed. And then that meat is stamped with a Wyoming Department of Agriculture stamp, and that meat can be sold throughout the state of Wyoming. Then there are custom processors. So if you're a rancher and the custom facilities are inspected for cleanliness and inspected to make sure that proper procedures are being done, but people can send their personal animals there, and then all of that meat goes back to the owner of the animal. We passed a bill 2 or 3 years ago that you could buy portions of animals before slaughter. So I can buy my half of beef while it's still on the hoof. It can go to one of these custom processors, and then I get my half of beef that way. So I can buy a portion of an animal that's still on the hoof. And those facilities are inspected for cleanliness and for proper procedures, and that things are going well there. What this seems to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, is make it so that I can, at our place, I can slaughter an animal, and then I can cut it up with no inspection at all. I can cut it up, I can wrap it up, and I can sell it at the farmer's market on Saturday afternoon with no inspection. We don't know if the animal that I killed had cancer eye. We don't know if it had tuberculosis. We don't know if it had any of those diseases that animals carry, because I just killed it on my place and wrapped it up and took it to the farmer's market. So once again, I think we need to be careful with meat. We've done these food freedom things periodically through my tenure here, which are fine, because in those cases, they were not products that were easily tainted. In this case, they are products that are easily tainted. So once again, cautiously go forward.
Majority Floor Leader Nyman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just for some background from my perspective dealing with this issue, and I would like to further get that information. If that is in there, that we're killing and processing animals and goodness knows what, then we have to clear that up, and that will definitely have to be amended. There's no way I would support this legislation anyway, but I will tell you, if we can correct that, which I believe that we can do through the amendment process, this will help us as agricultural people and ag a lot, because I've got some really good processors, custom processors that are state inspected. They are going through those processes, those facilities. But the big thing that this is going to change is when we did get the Food Freedom Act, it created a lot of problems for our brand inspectors and how we broke up those animals. It was to the point where you have to have different names on this, and it's created quite a system of rigmarole. And if I would give you the number of my custom meat processor back in the northeast corner of Wyoming, he would say he said it's made our lives very difficult. But this will allow us to be able to process, minus any potential changes to any, just let's kill it out and drag it through the sagebrush and wrap some plastic around it and sell it. I'd like to make sure that that's not in there, and we will do that. This will allow us to sell in-state through custom processors and streamline it incredibly well. And it will allow us as producers a lot more latitude and market to be able to sell these meats inside the state, mind you. This is not crossing state lines because you have to be federally inspected if you're going to cross state lines. But if you want to sell out of a custom processing facility that is state inspected, it will allow you to do that in state without having to have all the ownership names and all those things on it that makes it so cumbersome. So this is a good thing for us, and it's going to help agricultural folks that are selling meat products in the state of Wyoming do a better, more less burdensome job of being able to get quality products to our state residents. So on and for the bill with amendments. Let's make sure that that's in there, folks. Nobody wants it the other way.
Representative Walters.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. On and against the bill, well, this body will be meeting in a year from now. We don't even know what our federal partners are going to do with this law. We don't know what it'll look like when it comes out. We know how it's drafted today, but it hasn't been passed. We don't know what changes will be made. And to automatically say as soon as they pass it based on the number that's there, we're going to implement something, I think is a little bit premature. I think it's definitely beneficial to our beef producers and our meat producers in the state to have this kind of ability in the future, but to just suddenly jump off and say as soon as our federal partners pass it, we're going to get right in line and go do it is a little bit premature. Let's make sure that what they pass is safe for the consumers of Wyoming, something that we really want to work with. And nowhere in this bill does it address those kind of concerns. Like I said, we'll be back in a year from now. We can address those concerns. We can custom craft this very bill to make sure it's what Wyoming needs, make sure our Wyoming consumers are well protected once that federal action passes. But we don't even know if the federal action will pass. So why are we headed down this road in such a rush when we don't need to be headed down that road in such a rush? And no one has addressed why there is such an urgent need to get this done preemptively when the federal legislation hasn't even made it through the process. So for right now, I'm on and against it. And I look forward to seeing something like this in front of a legislative body in the future, because at that time we'll know what our federal partners have done and we'll be able to address those concerns. And so I just don't understand the rush. That rush has not been addressed here this morning and would encourage a no vote at this time. Thank you.
Representative Slagle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On and for this bill, I would encourage a aye vote. We had a situation a few years ago with the pandemic where grocery stores had issues with getting supplies. I mean, we had cattle next door in the pastures that couldn't be slaughtered and brought to the stores. This really doesn't solve that issue, but it does solve it in the fact that I could sell a cow or I could have several of my cows butchered and sell them to my neighbors that couldn't buy their meat at the store. So I think this is a good bill, and I would encourage an aye vote.
Representative Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In response to the good bringer from the center of the state, the representative there, I think, if you look at the bill and right there it says, an act relating to marketing homemade goods, providing for the sale of homemade meat products as specified, providing for a delayed effective date pending certification by the governor based on a federal action. So I think, the unique thing about this is we would be the first ones in the nation, but we've already got these questions, about are we jumping ahead or anything? But they're already addressed right here in this bill. So I think we're in pretty good shape with this, and I would do an aye vote on this, be the first in the nation.
Chairman Eklund.
Madam Chairman, So I don't know where to start with some of what's been mentioned, but I think the traceability of what we're talking about here is very traceable. The big E. coli outbreaks you hear of usually affect almost tons of beef that are contaminated, and they're not done by these little processing plants. As far as where do you go back to, you know exactly where to go back to. You go back to either a producer, or you go back to the farmer's market that you got it from. I think that part is not really a great concern of mine. I think by passing some of this, we not only help producers that are trying to figure out how to market beef. If you ever tried marketing beef this way, it's slow and hard. But the bigger problem is you run into a great many friends who would like to have fresh beef off the place. And sometimes the best processor you can find is a meat processor, not necessarily the federal inspected one. And it is really inconvenient to split up an animal and find a grumpy old brand inspector who's willing to split that up as he retitles the beef and sells it that way. And that's a possibility that could happen anyway, any way you do it, retitling the beef on the hoof. But anyway, I think a lot of the concerns are unfounded, and I have a bigger concern with some of what happens in a federal basis and as it's marketed through that than I do with this meat.
Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. To go ahead, thanks for the great conversation. But as previous people have said, this is the Wyoming Prime Act. This will be the first in the nation to set up as a pilot, conducive on the federal bill passing and also with the governor's recommendation. So all of those things have been, that's in the first paragraph there. It is pending certification by the governor based on federal action. So all of those things are done. In our community over in the center part of the state, the producers are having the most difficult time getting to a brand inspection. The state facilities are not always familiar, and they're having to drive across the state, which is backing up things. So anyway, this is just a trigger bill. This is not to put anything into work next week, but it is something that will set the tone for what Wyoming does best, and that's produce beef, produce food, to get it to local markets, and to set a standard for the state that can be worked on after that. I ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Sensing you're ready to pull the trigger, question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Eklund's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 103 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Senate File 103 is passed Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 111. Actually, we're going to have a privilege real quick. We have Representative O'Hearn.
Privilege, Madam Chair.
Go for it.
Thank you. From the #1 county in the state of Wyoming, we have the Wyoming Confederation of Clubs. They're here to witness some of what we're doing here on the floor, see how bills are made and legislation is passed. Welcome, gentlemen. I might have spoke too soon, and ladies, if there's any ladies up there too. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, okay.
All right, the next bill for our consideration is Senate File 111. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 111, sponsored by Senator Driscoll. Mule and white-tailed deer, separate hunting seasons, an act relating to game and fish. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, to whom's referred Senate File 111 engrossed, mule and white-tailed deer, separate hunting seasons, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes Representatives Angelos, Burkhart, Byron, Larson, Newsom, Singh, Storer, Western, Winter. Representative Newsom, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairwoman Newsom?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that House Bill number 111 do pass, and there are no amendments. And I turn the explanation over to my co-committee member.
Representative Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So today I bring you mule and white-tailed deer separate hunting seasons. And what this does, members, is it addresses a challenge we've had with the mule deer population throughout the state, and especially on the west side of the state. And so what it does is it creates similar license fees for mule deer and white-tailed deer. So mule deer are already in statute. It creates a separate spot for whitetail licenses, and that's pretty much what the bill does. I stand for any questions.
Representative Conrad.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question for the bringer. We talk about the mule deal and separation, obviously, from the whitetail. Is this a systemic issue throughout the 23 counties we have, or are we trying to address one specific area, say Uinta versus another one? I'm just a little confused because I haven't seen the influx, at least in the southwest corner, with this issue. So my question is, what's the drive here, more importantly, to justify regulation?
Were you in line, Mr. Chairman? Did you just cut the line? All right. Chairman Northrup.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I would just like to answer that question because in my area, the whitetails, quite frankly, are breeding like rabbits, and they've pushed the mule deer out. And so now the mule deer are pushed up into the hinterlands. We don't ever see them anymore. All we see are whitetails. They're running quite rampant on the roads. They're killed between the two towns that are in our area. And besides just being a general nuisance, they're causing and wreaking destructive, how can I say that politely? They're just a nuisance.
Wreaking destruction. Representative Penn.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The question that I would have is if we have a numbers issue, why is it that we can't just increase the number of tags? Why do we need a separate season? Thank you.
Representative Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. That's a great question, and it's because we have different populations to manage. One population for mule deer we want to increase, and another population for whitetail we want to decrease. So we have to separate that out. So we have the department has the ability to issue separate amounts of licenses for both species.
Speaker Sommers.
Madam Chairman, thank you. I'm in support of the bill, but I'll say when I served on the Wildlife Task Force, this debate raged back and forth. Should we split them? Should we not split them? There's pros and cons both ways. If you have a deer license now and you don't get, let's say you start in western Wyoming deer hunting, then eventually you can end up like hunting whitetails in northeast Wyoming, but maybe nobody's really going to focus on whitetails in areas where whitetails have kind of become more invasive in traditional mule deer ranges. So I think it's a combination of trying to put maybe a little more pressure on those whitetails in areas where they're more like invasive than in eastern Wyoming, where they're like prized, northeastern Wyoming. So, and I'll be honest, there's hunters for and against this, and I'll be honest, it's a split group out there, very split.
Representative Winter.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm in favor of this bill. About 25 years ago, I had a 30-plus inch buck on my place, mule deer buck, and we have no mule deer at all anymore. And I allow a lot of hunters to come on my place to hunt whitetail. because there aren't any mule deer, but we need to really put some pressure on these whitetails so we can save the mule deer. It's my understanding that the Game and Fish, this is not a problem for them. They can do whatever's necessary to make this happen. And we just need to apply pressure on the whitetail. Thank you.
Representative Haroldson.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So I was a part of this conversation 2 years ago as this bill came the first time before TRW. And I think a couple things we have to understand. Game and Fish can regulate or manage this as it sits, but it would make it easier to do it the way of splitting them. The reality is people aren't pursuing shooting the whitetail as much as they are pursuing the mule deer. Our numbers are down. So there's a catch-22. I'm going to throw one idea out though that I heard from the hunting community, and I can relate with it. So in my area, I'll pull a general deer tag, and I will hunt mule deer with that tag. And if I don't see a mule deer that's mature or at a point where it's a good harvest, I then let that general tag, I use that to pursue whitetail with. And the concern that I have, and I know that I'm not alone, this is a very common practice in Wyoming for people to use that general tag. Instead of burning a tag or eating a tag, we fill it with a whitetail doe or a whitetail later into the season. And so what I'm afraid of is if we split these and people get a mule deer tag, they will try to fill that tag. And a lot of times, because our population numbers are low, our buck numbers are low, they may fill that tag with a non-mature buck. And so I'm not going to try sway you one way or the other. I'm just giving you some of the arguments that I feel need to be heard on the floor when it comes to this bill, that if we go to a mule deer specific tag, people will try fill that even if maybe it isn't a mature mule deer. And then that is at the same time maybe not achieving what we want to. An amendment idea is you have to kill 2 whitetails to even get a mule deer tag.
A lot of love for whitetail here today. Representative Berger.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And I appreciate the last comments, and I'm going to piggyback on those comments from my area, and I'll give you my own personal experiences. If I get a deer tag, and if I don't shoot a mule deer, or if I choose not to, I still get to take that mule deer tag, that same deer tag, and I travel up north. Okay? I go up north and I go northeast and I try to find me a whitetail, you know, and what I don't want to see is opportunity taken away. You know, I want to make sure that if I do have a deer tag, a mule deer, will I be able to purchase still a whitetail tag up in those areas, or is it going to be draw? You know, I kind of like that piece right there that the good representative said before. So I'm not there yet. I don't know what to think, but that's where I'm thinking right now.
Representative Angelos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I voted this out of committee. I voted for it, yes, and I said very plainly that I wasn't quite sure. I've had mixed, as one of the other speakers said, there's pros and cons to both. I hear pros from a lot of our hunters and cons from a lot of our hunters. And the thing that kind of, and maybe we need to bring an amendment later, but one of the issues was, are they going to be able to pull up both a mule deer tag and a whitetail tag, same as our last speaker? Those are some of the things. What's the quotas going to be? They decreased the season on mule deer last year. I think they decreased it for like 6 days in some of the areas where I'm at. So are they going to do that again? So there is some concerns there. I think there's so many unknowns that I'm not there for the bill actually yet. But maybe looking at keeping, this is a thought, keeping our whitetail or keeping one deer tag for residents and maybe splitting it for non-residents. That may be an amendment we could do for it. But because that is a concern. I have family that hunts down in the Grays. If they can't get a mule, they'll go up to Northeast where I'm at and do a whitetail. So maybe that's an amendment we could look at, but I'm just not quite there yet. Thank you.
Representative Byron.
Thank you, Chairwoman. You know, I think we need to take a step back and as an avid deer hunter, sometimes a whitetail harvester, We have yet to hear anything, whether or not touring around the state or in committee, about a lack of whitetail anywhere. There's a lot of whitetail everywhere. There's places that for a long time they said, oh, there's no whitetail there. I said, well, drive out to the road. There's 3 dead on the side of the road. So, these are 2 different species of animals. These are very easy, and I really appreciate the good amendment that was suggested from the representative for where the land is wheat. I think that is a good idea. It has been done in the past. There's been a lot of creative ways to manage wildlife in the past. A lot of times they're used to get an elk tag, a bear tag came with it. So, on and for this, let's move this through committee of whole. Good for your freezer, good for your friends.
Representative Davis, how's your freezer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is the right time for the bill, Our memories are sometimes pretty short, but last year we had an epic winter. We destroyed our mule deer in the state of Wyoming. It's going to be years for them to come back, So maybe this is a tool that we can kind of offset that burden a little bit on them mule deer. And so I think this is a good time. Maybe it's the right time for this to go forth.
Chairman Burkhart.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just one thought here, if you read through that bill, while we're talking about the 2 species, one thing we miss is, in the bill, they've divided the 2 species. You have to buy 2 licenses if you want to hunt each. They've doubled the cost. I've hunted places that have both. I've taken mule deer, whitetail in the same place on 1 license. This means if I want to go back there and I know I take a chance at either one, I have to buy 2 licenses for double the money. I think there's a better way to do this, and we ought to give Game and Fish either the authority or pressure them to do the job to correctly manage the game, which is scientifically and not emotionally, and to pay for it in that way, not doubling the license. That's what this does. It doubles the license and doubles the cost. And I do remember when your elk license came with a bear tag, small game, and fishing on the same license. And over the years, we've split them up and we're doing it again. Pretty soon, we'll have a separate one for everything and anything. Other states require you buy a license to well, I would say hunt, but that's not quite right for prairie dogs. So that's my concern with this, is we've split the animals and we've just doubled the cost. Thank you.
Representative Slagle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On and against this bill. And I think the agency that regulates our game, like the previous speaker said, has been doing a good job of controlling the animals like they need to be controlled. Cutting down the amount of mule deer hunting and increasing licenses by doing special whitetail tags. So on and against this bill. Thank you.
Representative Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So I'd encourage you to vote aye on this bill, at least to get it through committee of the whole. Maybe we can come with some second or third reading amendments to address some of your concerns, but I encourage an aye vote.
Question being called, so we can go to lunch. All those in favor of Chairman Newsom's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 111 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Senate File 111 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File, Representative Walters.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Could I have a privilege of the floor?
You may.
Thank you. Members, I think we should stand up, stretch our legs, and celebrate that in 1872, on March 1st, Yellowstone National Park was established right here in the great state of Wyoming.
Speaker Sommers.
Madam Chairman, thank you. Just a note, we're going to run a while, and then the committee meetings will be after we get done, and then when we gavel out for lunch or whatever you want to call it, that's going to be for the day. But you're going to have to still go to your committee meetings afterwards, but I'm going to run it for a little while before we do that.
All right. $113. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 113. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 113, sponsored by Senator Pappas. Light and high-profile vehicle closures 2, an act relating to highways. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom is referred Senate File 113 engrossed. Light and high-profile vehicle closures 2. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Berger, Brown, Nemec, Obermueller, O'Hearn, Smith, Stivar, Wiley. Noes, Representative Pendergraft. Representative Brown, Chairman.
You've read the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Brown?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that Senate File, I believe it's 113, is that right? 113 do pass, and I will explain the bill. Ladies and gentlemen, we saw this and I will further move this standing committee amendment at this point, Madam Chairwoman, and I will explain the amendment as we go into the bill. We saw this almost exact same bill, looked a lot different, but the premise of the bill was almost identical during introductions on our side, and it had just enough to pass, but not quite enough to make it through the introductory vote. So it's made its way through the process, and frankly, they made a good bill even better. And so what this is, ladies and gentlemen, is we were tasked as a committee to keep I-80 open. What do we have to do to keep commerce running on I-80? How do we get that going? And there's really a couple of options, right? Number one is to get it to stop snowing. And number two is to get truckers that tend to clog up our roads that tip over because of high wind, get them to stop tipping over. And those were really kind of the two opportunities that we had this year. And so what we realized is we didn't have much of an opportunity to do anything except enforce our particular statutes that we have and give them a few more teeth. And I think we're going to go back to having a few more teeth on this discussion, Madam Chairwoman. What this boils down to, ladies and gentlemen, is if you flip through the bill really quickly, the engrossed version takes you down and you'll see that this was a 6-page bill as it was originally brought in. It's now only a 3-page bill. And what this bill is basically doing is saying, hey, look, if you decide that you think you've got a vehicle that is heavy enough to travel in our high winds across our state, and you tip over, you're going to get fined. And so the way that this has been cleaned up is we had stair step and we had very high fines to begin with, up to $5,000 in fines for the first offense. That might have been the reason that died over here on introduction, who knows, but it's been cleaned up. And so we say you're going to get a $1,000 fine if you decide that you think you can go across the state and not tip over. Secondarily, if you do it a second time, and this is where the standing committee amendment has come in, as this came over from the other body, it was hey, look, if you do this more than one time in a year, you can be convicted for this and you can actually be fined $2,500. And then you're also charged with the reckless driving statute, which is 315229. And so you end up actually getting hit twice. We as the committee decided to move that back a little bit because what we have is we have some people that move across this state and may only come through this state once or twice a year in a given year. And we thought, hey, look, if you come through here one year, you blow over and you knock down and demolish $8 million a day out of our economy, and you come back and do it again in another year, but you're just 6 days past that, we still think you should be subject to the reckless driving. You're shutting down our economy and you're shutting down the economy of other states by getting that through. So we moved that to 3 years. The original bill called for 5. I decided that, the committee decided that it would be a good idea to just kind of split that and see if we can't just avoid a conference committee with that. So that's the bill and that's also the amendment. And with any questions on the amendment, I'll stand aside.
Any discussion on the amendment? Question having been called, all those in favor of standing committee amendment number 1, please say aye. All those opposed? Standing committee amendment number 1 has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Brown's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 113 do pass. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Senate File 113 has passed committee of the whole. The next bill for, pause.
Yeah, we're gonna, Mr. Majority Floor.
Which one was it? 36 or 8, 36?
Majority Floor Leader Nyman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, we just did a little bit of updating, trying to move some of the committee bills up, kind of with the expedited plan that we're working on here, something just. What'd you do? I don't know. I'm not techie savvy. I touched something.
You did. You messed it up.
Anyway, if you'll look at, it is currently updated on your online, so we're going to be going to the next labor and health bill, I believe it is number 8, and then right after that will be judiciary's bill, number 36. And then we'll see how we get done through those, and we might be stopping after those two. It just kind of depends on what we get into for debate. So just for information. Thank you.
The next bill for our consideration then is Senate File 108. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Just 8.
Oh.
Just 8. It's not 108.
Oh. Excuse me, next bill is Senate File 8. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 8, sponsored by Labor, Health Insurance for Volunteer Emergency Responders, an act relating to compensation and benefits. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom was referred Senate File 8, Health Insurance for Volunteer Emergency Responders, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Chadwick, Clouston, Hornock, O'Hearn, Penn, Trujillo, Ward, Yin, Zwanitzer. Representative Zwanitzer, Chairman.
Chairman Zwanitzer.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I move in the Committee of the Whole Rise report to do so with the recommendation that Senate File 8 do pass. There are no standing committee amendments. And even though it's a bit unorthodox, we're going to give it to the good member on revenue and TRW to explain our committee bill to the body.
Representative Byron.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Members, I bring to you Senate File 8, Health Insurance for Volunteer First Responders, Volunteer Emergency First Responders. As noted, there have been no amendments, and you can look through the bill on your device or on paper and look at the past votes. We're looking pretty good. It's a very simple bill. It allows voluntary emergency first responders that are serving your great districts to simply opt in to the state health insurance plan. Why that's important, we heard through testimony and during the interim that volunteers are very quickly declining statewide, especially in these fields. And this is a great tool to do some recruitment, but more importantly, in my opinion, do some retention to allow them to opt in. This will allow them to get better health plans that they pay for individually, and allow them to get part of the bigger pool statewide. And I think it's a great tool for wonderful folks that dedicate hundreds and hundreds of hours to our communities, expecting nothing in return. So ask for your favorable consideration.
Representative Ward.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I urge an aye vote on this. I voted aye in committee, and I just wanted to explain that it is no additional cost to the state. The firefighters pay the premiums themselves. They can just opt in to the plan. So it may, in fact, reduce costs for the state because there are more people in the plan paying premiums. So I just want to encourage the body to vote aye.
Chairman Larson, never mind. Representative Byron, question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Zwanitzer's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 8 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. Senate File 8 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 36. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 36, sponsored by Judiciary, Uniform Child Abduction Prevention Act, an act relating to domestic relations. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 1, Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 36, Uniform Child Abduction Prevention Act, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Chestick, Nemec, Oakley, Provenza, Rodriguez-Williams, Washit. Noes, Representatives Haroldson, Jennings, Excuse Representative Crago. Representative Washit, Chairman.
Representative Washit or Vice Chair Rodriguez Williams? Vice Chair Rodriguez Williams of Judiciary, would you mind moving Senate File 36?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move Senate File 36, the Uniform Child Abduction Prevention Act, and ask for your favorable consideration. That one. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 36 do pass. Essentially, what this bill does is it's another tool for our judges. No, it's fine. On page 2, it speaks to several definitions, and then page 3, additional definitions. Page 4 talks about actions for abduction. So what we're dealing with is parental abductions and jurisdiction for the courts of when they can step in to help with some of these cases. Bear with me for one moment. Find the page here. Okay. I would say the meat and potatoes of this bill lies on page 20 when we talk about one of the tools that the courts can use, the judge can use to take physical custody of a child, which deals with a warrant. And so the court can petition and instruct law enforcement to take actions to find the child and implement certain things like putting a hold on passports and so forth to make sure that that child isn't taken out of state, and et cetera. And I ask for your favorable consideration and thank you for your grace on presenting this.
Pro Speaker, I'm at a loss for words. Representative Stith.
Madam Chairman, I just have a question. The title of the bill, it's a Uniform Child Abduction Prevention Act. That seems to say that it was perhaps proposed language from perhaps a national committee where that this has been recommended or adopted in other states. And I just had my question is that the case, that this is sort of a uniform law that's been adopted in a number of other states? Because we have a lot of our statutes are based upon, uniform commercial code, for example. And that's just my question. And if someone could explain just, what kind of problem is it going to solve? It sounds like the purpose of it is good. It sounds like the purpose of it is if a court has a reasonable belief that a child's about to be abducted, that the court can, deal with that situation. So that's just my question. Thank you.
Representative Chestick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I can answer the question from the good representative from the places where rocks jump around with springs. This bill is a uniform act. It's the commission, Uniform Act Commission has drafted this bill. It is related in some ways. It's a supplement to a uniform act that we adopted 20 years ago, the Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction and Enforcement Act. has been adopted now in 49 states, including Wyoming. We adopted it about 20 years ago. This is a supplement to that. It has been adopted, I think, now in approximately 16 states, including 4 of the states that surround us. It's intended to provide a tool for attorneys who are representing people in child custody disputes and try to coordinate with other states when one parent is about to abduct another child or generally has conducted himself or herself in such a way or said things that make it very likely or very possible that an abduction is about to occur. We heard a lot of testimony during the interim from people who have been through this situation where a child may be threatened with, one parent may be trying to take the child out of this jurisdiction, out of the country, possibly to other countries where we have no ability to reach that child, and trying to prevent the situation where the custodial parent may never see their child again because they're being threatened with being taken out of state or out of the country. There's a number of people who are permitted to file these kinds of actions. On page 4, a party to a child custody dispute, the most likely occurrence would be that situation, but a prosecutor or a court on its own motion who detects that there is a threat of an imminent abduction can enter into all kinds of an order that would revoke travel privileges or revoke passports or whatever that needs to be done to prevent the abduction from occurring. There's a pretty high standard about when that could be done. And I think the major part of the bill, from my point of view, really begins on page 7, starting on line 18. It's a long list of factors that the court has to consider before it would entertain such an order. This is a pretty significant order, but there's a lot of considerations that the court will take into account. It goes on through about page 11, on to almost to page 13. A lot of things the courts will look at in order to make before it can make a determination that an abduction is about to occur. So this is a tool that parents can use to protect their children from possible abduction and prevent the abduction from happening to begin with. I guess those are the major points that I would like to make in support of this bill.
Chairman Washington.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Members, I urge an aye vote on this. We heard a lot of important testimony about these situations. They are not rare in Wyoming, where there is, in fact, a credible risk of abduction. Sometimes it's openly threatened that as soon as I get the chance, this child is out of here. I'm taking the child out of the country or out of the state. And heard testimony about one case where it was an intentional desire to take the child to a Middle Eastern country that was not a signatory to the Hague Agreement, so there would be no mechanism to get the child back. And so this is a situation that does occur in Wyoming. It adds a tool to the judicial toolbox. There will be court hearings. The judge will have to find, based upon a credible risk of abduction, whether or not to implement some of these protective standards in these cases. And they're preemptive to make it less likely that one of these children disappear. And as a father, I think about what that would feel like to have one of my children taken out of the country and have no opportunity to get them back. How do you fix that? So on and in favor of this, and I urge your aye vote.
Representative Baer.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. On and opposed to this bill, oftentimes we look at these uniform codes as a way to create continuity between us and other states, but what we don't think about is the fact that we're overriding many of our own laws that this body and previous bodies have worked on And in this case, we're talking about some of our child abduction laws. And I think that we should approach these things cautiously and probably do it more piecemeal than just simply taking a suggestion from an organization that is not based on Wyoming. I think this is far from being a Wyoming solution to a Wyoming problem.
Representative Chestek.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is a uniform act, but it's not one of those compacts that we have no say in. We can change the language if we choose to and make it a Wyoming solution. But I think the fact that this is a uniform act is useful in this situation because these kinds of situations tend to cross state lines. So to the extent that all states have uniform laws that deal with the situation in similar ways, it's a good thing that we are able to have a uniform law. The uniformity actually comes in on page 4 in lines 13 to 17, section 20-8-103. It's a lot of numbers and gibberish, but it's not gibberish. It's actually what it is. This is where the cooperation between states is allowed to happen. And this provides tools that where there is an interstate situation, courts can cooperate with each other, and we can get depositions and testimony across state lines, and that's an important aspect of this bill. And almost by definition, these situations cross state lines, and therefore I think uniform acts are very useful, and I urge an aye vote.
Sensing you are ready to be abducted to lunch, all those in favor of Vice Chairman Rodriguez Williams' motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 36 do pass. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. Senate File 36 has passed the Committee of the Whole. One more, 109? Okay. The next reading, the next bill for consideration is Senate File 109. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 109, sponsored by Senator Beitman, Prohibited Red Flag Gun Seizure Act, an act relating to the protection of constitutional rights. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 7, or Committee Number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, to whom is referred Senate File 109 engrossed, Prohibit Red Flag Gun Seizure Act, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Angelos, Burkhart, Byron, Larson, Newsom, Singh, Western, Winter. Noes, Representative Storer. Representative Newsom, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairwoman Newsom?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that that Senate File Number 109 do pass. I further move the Standing Committee amendment. Both will be explained by the good representative from House District 42.
Representative Hornock.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Members, this is a bill that is an effort to protect Wyoming's Second Amendment rights, and it makes sure that due process is followed when a Wyoming citizen is, before a Wyoming citizen has their guns taken away. I will walk through the bill quickly, and then we'll go through the Standing Committee amendment. First of all, in the first thing you'll notice in the bill is that there is a new section of language dealing with government immunity, and then this section is Article 3. This act will be known as the Prohibit Red Flag Gun Seizure Act. Page 2 and 3 deal with some legislative findings, talking about the Second Amendment, the 10th Amendment, Article 1, Section 24 of the Wyoming Constitution. And then it also deals with the 5th and 14th Amendment to the Constitution that requires due process for before rights can be taken away. Page 4 is basically the meat of the bill, the new section of law. So this enacts the red flag gun seizure. It defines what that is. And then what we're doing is we're prohibiting people that are certain groups from owning guns. And those groups are violent felons. So if you've been convicted of a violent felony, you aren't under this law. And then also on page 5, rights cannot be removed. You cannot ask to have your firearm surrendered unless you've been convicted of a violent felony. The bottom of page 5, government agencies in the state are required to block red flag gun seizures. And then page 6, government agencies are required to, cannot use their own resources to enforce red flag seizures. That's what section C deals with. And then section D deals with a preemption clause where local ordinances cannot, this will trump local ordinances when it comes to dealing with guns and seizures. And then section E on the top of page 7, nothing in this act shall be construed to prohibit or prevent a firearm accessory, or ammunition from being seized as evidence or collected by law enforcement in the course of lawful investigation. That's a pretty important section of that, so they can still deal with crimes and criminals. On page 7, section 914.304 deals, we add a clause in here that says that government agencies are liable in a civil action. So there's a penalty of up to $50,000. Page 8, so you can bring those civil actions to a governmental agency, and then any award on section C, page 8, also would include attorney fees. And then the bottom section of page 8, 139-104, basically we're adding a section in the immunity clause within our state statute that basically removes government immunity for any red flag gun seizures. Page 9, on 610-106, basically that really specifies that we're dealing with if a violent felon, if there is a violent felon, somebody's convicted of a violent felony, they are still not allowed to possess or own guns, ammunition, or accessories. Page 10, the last page, there's a repealer to current law. And then section 4, this act, it does become effective immediately. I will go ahead and move the standing committee amendment number 1 to this bill and explain that now and ask for your favorable consideration on that. So basically, I think it's on page 5. What this amendment does is it cleans up a little bit of language on page 4 and 5, and then it also makes sure that we're dealing with not only violent felons, but we're dealing with people on parole, on probation, people within the umbrella of mentally ill. And then the Game and Fish Department came to us and said, hey, we want something in there that allows us to still take away guns for poaching and other things that they deal with. So that amendment is in the bill. That this bill also includes, or the red flag laws would not cover those people. So at this time, I move the amendment and ask for your favorable consideration.
Question having been called, all those in favor of standing committee amendment number 1, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Standing committee amendment number 1 has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Representative Yin.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So the repealer is actually repealing a law that we as the 67th passed last year. So the repealer is, let's see, it's 68102C. So 68102C actually came into being last year from Senate File 120, 2023, which was about restoration of civil rights. So that was about giving folks both their gun and their voting rights back. The issue with repealing it is that if that no longer happens, the restoration of rights doesn't fully occur yet. And I know, I'm trying to recall exactly the discussion that we had last year on this, where if that right wasn't removed, it couldn't be restored. So I urge you to, I don't know, consider a second reading amendment, because if we get rid of that, we're going to hurt those folks that we were going to essentially give them their rights back.
Any other discussion? Representative Stitt.
Mr. Chairman, yes, I just would like to ask the presenter of the bill about that repealer, because we've restored gun rights to people just this last year. And we've actually put funding in the budget bill to continue that process so that we can get guns back to people who have now successfully completed their whatever term of punishment that, you know, that they were entitled to, that they had to do. And so it looks like, as drafted, this bill takes guns away from people, takes guns away from Wyomingites. I mean, is that the purpose of this bill, is to take guns away from people? Is that what you're doing?
Representative Hornock.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So regarding the repealed section, Wyoming 6-8-102C, what we did last year is we put a clause in state statutes that says any felon can't own guns. What this bill does is clarify that we won't allow guns for nonviolent felons. So the difference there is pretty big, in my opinion. We currently in state statutes that 6-8-102C, we'd basically take guns away from white collar criminals. It's the people that are caught with, you know, a small amount of marijuana. It's a felony. You can be convicted of a felony for writing a bad check, and then that haunts you for the rest of your life, being unable to own a gun or go hunt those white-tailed deer that we just talked about. So that section is pulled out of state statutes, and it's basically kind of replaced with this one, because there is a difference between a nonviolent white-collar criminal versus a violent felon. And I don't think we want to have the guns in the hands of violent felons, and that's what the purpose of this law really is for.
Speaker Pro Tem Stitt.
Mr. Chairman, a second question is the definition. We have a definition here on page 4 of the phrase red flag gun seizure. And that's defined to mean a federal statute, rule, executive order, et cetera. Just have a question. It just seems odd so the word seizure no longer means a federal law. So against that background, does the way this is written, because I haven't read it through as carefully as I probably should have, is there any portion of 18 U.S.C. section 922G that would now be considered a red flag gun seizure under this bill? In other words, I see with the Standing Committee amendment, I think you've tried to accommodate federal law, but is there an existing federal statute? And I'm not talking about an executive order or a rule from an agency, but is there any existing federal statute, to your knowledge, that would be considered a red flag gun seizure right now? I can't quite tell if the Standing Committee amendment encapsulates everything that's under section 922G of 18 U.S.C. or not. I just not sure.
Chairman Washut.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So this question, so last year's bill gave Wyoming law enforcement and prosecutors the option that when a Wyoming citizen who is convicted of a nonviolent felony was found in possession of a firearm, that we'd have the option of pursuing that case in state court as a misdemeanor crime. Without that, these referrals will all go to the federal government, and all these cases will be prosecuted under federal law. I don't know that that's a positive thing. Secondly, you know, we talk about people with small amounts of marijuana or white-collar criminals, but when we also think about nonviolent felons, we're talking about people who sell methamphetamine, people who sell fentanyl, people who commit all sorts of crimes, right, that fall under the category of misdemeanors. And I remember working, you know, a homicide case where a nonviolent felon was committed murder, right? So just because your conviction is for a nonviolent felony doesn't mean that you're a nonviolent person. And I'm just urging some caution on this. I don't know that any of us want to have dangerous people not covered by state law. And we also don't want to take those white-collar criminals and people with small amounts of marijuana and refer those cases to the U.S. Attorney's Office for prosecution as a felony crime under federal law. So I think we ought to be careful about what we throw out in the repealer here.
Representative Hornock.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good questions. I think that what we have tried to do with this bill is really thread a fine needle. The importance is to make sure that there is due process before somebody loses their rights regarding a firearm, ammunition, that kind of thing, or make sure that we you know, I think the amendment really kind of threads the needle pretty well with what different agencies in the state came back to. And then, you know, I would just urge an aye vote, and we can discuss some of this stuff, discuss some of the amendments that we talked about, and move this bill forward. I'd recommend an aye vote so that Wyoming becomes a leader in the nation with maintaining and keeping our Second Amendment rights. Thank you.
Sensing you're ready for lunch. Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Newsom's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 109 do pass. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. Senate File 109 has passed Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration. Division being called. All those in favor, please stand. All those opposed, please stand. Less than 37. Senate File 109 has passed Committee of the Whole. Majority Floor Leader Nyman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move the Committee of the Whole rise and report.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The motion carries.
The reading clerk will read the Committee of the Whole report.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee of the Whole, having had under consideration bills on general file, begs leave to report as follows. Senate File 74, do pass. Senate File 103, do pass. Senate File 111, do pass. Senate File 113, do pass amended. Senate File 8, do pass. Senate File 36, do pass. Senate File 109, do pass amended. Representative Provenza, Chairman.
Chairman Provenza.
I move the adoption of the committee of the whole report.
All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Chairman Provenza. So are we, do we got some conference, we got some concurrences? No concurrences? So messages from the Senate.
Message 201. Mr. President, Senate File 118, Indian Child Welfare Act Safe Haven Amendments. The Senate file listed above passed on third reading in amended form. Oh, Mr. President. Here we go. This is message 248. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passes Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. House Bill 9, Fuel Tax Licensee Information Deadline. Ayes 30, excused 1. Message 249. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 20, School Finance Regional Cost Adjustment Study. The House bill listed above passed on third reading in an amended form as follows by the vote indicated. Ayes 30, excused 1. The Senate respectfully asks the House to concur by adopting the listed amendments. Message 250. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. House Bill 31, Peace Officers, Records and Reporting. Ayes 30, excused 1. Message 251. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. House Bill 64, Fire Prevention Electrical Safety Amendments. Ayes 27, noes 3, excused 1. Message 252. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. House Bill 86, Vehicle Lien Amendments. Ayes 29, excused 1, conflict 1. Message 253. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. House Bill 70, Local Government Distributions. Ayes 30, excused 1. Message number 254. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. House Bill 67, Outdoor Recreation and Tourism Trust Fund, Administration 2. Ayes 20, noes 10, excused 1. Message 255. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 83, Public Retirement Actuarially Determined Contributions. The House bill listed above passed on third reading in an amended form as follows by the vote indicated. Ayes 29, excused 1, conflict 1. The Senate respectfully asks the House to concur by adopting the listed amendments. Message 256. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 138, State Funds Pool A, Participation and Fund Limits. The House bill listed above passed on third reading in an amended form as follows by the vote indicated. Ayes 18, noes 12, excused 1. The Senate respectfully asks the House to concur by adopting the listed amendments. Message 257. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 148, Regulation of Surgical Abortions. The House bill listed above passed on third reading in an amended form as follows by the vote indicated. Ayes 24, noes 6, excused 1. The Senate respectfully asks the House to concur by adopting the listed amendments. Sincerely, Ellen Thompson, Senate Chief Clerk.
Standing reports from standing committees.
Senate File 6, sponsored by Labor, Nursing Home Administrators, Temporary Licenses, an act relating to professions and occupations. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred Senate File 6, Nursing Home Administrators, Temporary Licenses, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes Representatives Chadwick, Clauston, Hornock, O'Hearn, Penn, Trujillo, Ward, Yin, Zwanitzer. Representative Zwanitzer, Chairman. Senate File 41, sponsored by Minerals. Banking Division, Classification and Salary Exemptions, an act relating to banks. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 9, Minerals, Business and Economic Development, to whom is referred Senate File 41 engrossed. Banking Division, Classification and Salary Exemptions, respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Burkhart, Conrad, Larson, Lawley, Tarver, Western. Noes, Representatives Banks, Heiner, Knapp. Representative Burkhart, Chairman. Senate File 42, sponsored by Minerals. Low Carbon Reliable Energy Standards Amendments, an act related to public utilities. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 9, Minerals, Business and Economic Development, to whom is referred Senate File 42 engrossed, Low Carbon Reliable Energy Standards Amendments, respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Banks, Burkhart, Conrad, Heiner, Larson, Lawley, Tarver. Noes, Representatives Knapp, Western. Representative Burkhart, Chairman.
All right, we have a couple of re-referrals, and then I'll go to Representative Ottman after that. So Chairman Burkhart, you got a couple of referrals?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to refer Senate File 41 to Committee Number 2, Appropriations.
What about 42? It's on the list, but I don't.
I did not, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, I did not know there was an appropriation on that bill.
Okay, we'll just leave it at 41 and then you check, okay?
Right? Thank you.
Without objection, Senate File 41 is re-referred to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. Representative Ottman, did you have a privilege?
Privilege, Mr. Speaker.
Please.
Up in the South Gallery is my dear, dear friend and also Representative Smith's very diligent constituent, Diane, and I'd like you to welcome her to the People's House.
Hear, hear. Welcome to the House. All right, Mr. Majority Floor Leader, I think we're ready for a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House stand adjourned until 10 a.m. Monday, the 4th day of March, 2024.
Committee announcements. Chairman Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your House Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions Committee will meet immediately now upon this noon recess to consider 4 Senate files: Senate File 26, Special District Vacancies; Senate File 27, Special Districts Bond Elections Exemption; Senate File 24, Public Service Commission Integrated Resource Plans; and Senate File 23, Public Utilities Energy Resource Procurement.
Could Representative Larson come up to the front, please? Representative Larson Lloyd, could you come up to the front, please? Chairman Northrup.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee Number 4, Education, will meet immediately upon an adjournment. We're going to hear 3 bills: Senate File 19, Developmental Preschool Funding; Senate File 82, Summer School Preservation Act; and Senate File 86, School Safety and Security.
Chairman Zwanitzer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Committee Number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, will meet at 8:30 on Monday to hear Senate File 69, Hospice Care Reimbursements. For a further announcement, your Joint Conference Committee on Senate File 2, the Legislative Budget, will meet at noon on Monday in Room 113. Again, noon Monday, Room 113 for the Conference Committee on Senate File 2.
Chairman Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee Number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, will meet Monday at 8:30 to consider Senate File 52, Senate File 80, and Senate File 114. And the meeting will be in our usual Room 5 in the annex.
Chairman Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your House Appropriations will meet in 10 minutes to hear Senate File 77, Senate File 102, and Senate Joint Resolution 2. And then on Monday, we will hear Senate File 75. And on re-referrals, we'll do 57, 53, 54, and 41. Your joint conference committee will meet at 8 a.m. And the first part of that meeting will be an executive session where we've requested information from the LSO legal staff having to do, so we're going to get updated. Then we don't know if we will go immediately into session, committee after that or not. But if we don't, we will meet at a JCC meeting at noon.
And Chairman Nicholas, Chairman Nicholas, just so you know, our meeting is at 1:30 today, so I don't know if you'll get to all of those bills. Chairman Washit.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 1, Judiciary, will meet on Monday morning at 7:30. Here are 2 bills, Senate File 105 and Senate File 99.
All right, that seems to be it. You've heard the majority floor leader's motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. We stand adjourned until 10 a.m. Monday, March 4th, 2024.